When I researched the history of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, the greatest movie dance team in movie history, there are precious few startling and amazing backstories about Fred. He was all about family, career, and work. Yet he was still amazing, getting a nice review in the papers at only 6 years old. Ginger's life more than fills in this gap with some truly bizarre stories, and it started right off. Ginger always had a knack for getting herself noticed. In her first movie, Young Man of Manhattan, she had a line, "Cigarette me, big boy," that became a thing at the time. She asked to wear a monocle in 42nd Street, making her character stand out more. In Gold Diggers of 1933, after practice, she started playing around, singing the song in Pig Latin. Producer Zukar heard it and put it into the movie. Still, she outdid herself by getting her name on the front page of the Fort Worth newspaper at only 8 months old. Kidnapped. Her parents, Leila and William McMath, were separated before Ginger's birth. Her father kidnapped her, and after reporting it to the police, Leila set out to rescue her daughter herself. Ginger covers this story in detail in her autobiography. I always try to make the images match the script, but there are only a couple of photos I can find of an infant Ginger. Times have changed drastically. Don't judge Leila too harshly for her actions. This was 115 years ago, a very different time. Leila had a job in an office and brought infant Ginger to work. Sometimes she put Ginger outside, right at the window so she could see Ginger from her desk. Suddenly, Ginger was gone. She got help from a local policeman, and they rushed to catch the departing train, too late. Totally distraught, Leila took the next train to Kansas City to follow. Searching aimlessly in Kansas City, she came across the office of Dr. Tutt, a Christian Science practitioner. Leila and Ginger were both devout Christian Scientists, something Ginger writes about frequently in her bio. They talked and prayed, and Leila calmed down and became focused. She had to find her baby. I really do not understand some people. In a few reviews of her autobiography on Goodreads.com, there are a few bad reviews, 1 or 2 stars out of 5, and in several cases it seems Ginger discussing her faith, starting right off with this story, so offended the reader they were compelled to give it a poor or even very negative review. Leila went to her parents' house, and Ginger's grandfather went to his policeman friend for help. The next morning, a witness came to the house, reporting his uncle was on the train from Independence to Kansas City and recognized Ginger on the train, with a man, from her photo in the newspaper. They had gotten off in St. Louis. Leila rushed back to St. Louis, and on the way remembered Ginger's father had mentioned a cousin living in Ennis, Texas, just outside Dallas, several times, suggesting they move there. When Leila arrived in St. Louis, she called Ginger's grandfather, and he reported that Ginger's father's aunt had left the day before, heading to Texas. Leila was now convinced she was on the right path. The narrative includes many references to Leila calling that Christian Scientist practitioner, and prayers for help and guidance. I am not declaring these worked, but in this story it is amazing how quickly Leila was able to track down her daughter, with so many witnesses coming forward. At the station, she asked the Native American cab driver if he had seen her daughter, and he had driven Ginger and her father to his cousin's house. Leila told the driver Ginger was kidnapped and asked if he would drive her to that house and wait outside. Leila would grab Ginger and then speed off in the cab. The driver agreed. Ginger and Lucy tell many stories about Leila, her powerful presence, her abilities negotiating for and protecting them. Ginger seems to see her as a giant, but she was a tiny little woman, 5'1" and could not have been much more than 100 pounds. This part of the story really supports that legend. Leila was still determined to rescue her daughter herself. She was even packing a pistol. The cab pulled up to the house. Leila went to the door and saw Ginger in a high chair, burst into the house, grabbed Ginger, and before anyone could react was back in the cab. Ginger's father's Aunt Louisa was right behind her, grabbed hold of the taxi, and was dragged 50 yards before she fell off. Modern sensibilities might judge Leela's actions as reckless. I disagree. First, it worked, and you cannot argue with success. Some would say Leela should have called the police, let them handle it safely. That would have involved a hostage negotiation scenario. How might that have turned out? Domestic violence situations are extremely volatile, with passions running high. Louisa showed as much resolve as Leela in this story. She was already facing felony kidnap charges, and was so determined she had held on to that cab for 50 yards. Was there a gun in that house also? Just how far would she go to keep Ginger? Leela's quick actions avoided all these possibilities. There is another hero in this story besides Leela, the Native American cab driver. Ginger wrote when Leela asked the driver to help her with her plan, he seemed pleased to be in on some excitement. Whatever the case, Leela was incredibly lucky to have found him so quickly, because without him, her plan may never have succeeded. There is no name or image. Ginger wrote this almost 70 years later, but they should have had a picture of him on their wall to honor his invaluable contribution. The cab driver offered Leela and Ginger to stay at his mother's teepee on the reservation, and then get her to the early morning train. His mother's nickname was Radio, because she listened to it all the time. She fed Leela and Ginger, and they slept the night in her teepee. She said the railroad station master, Wilbur, was a relative of hers, and would let Leela hide in the station storm cellar till the train arrived. Funny, all names are remembered besides the driver. When they arrived at the station in the early morning, though, Wilbur said a man was hiding in the storm cellar. The driver went to check. It was Ginger's father. The driver said, "Don't you worry about him, ma'am. I've barricaded the storm cellar door, and it will take that kidnapper a good 3 hours to beat his way out of there. By that time, you and your baby will be well on your way." They made it back home safely. 2 years later, Ginger's father tried to kidnap her another time. Leela took him to court, where he was fined and threatened by the judge with being sent to Leavenworth Prison if there was another attempt. Ginger never saw him again. He died in 1925, never got to see the big star his daughter became. What a story! Perhaps a little exaggeration to make it a better story? Could be. Still, great start for these two, and the amazing life they would share together. It was a hell of a ride. Please like and subscribe.